anymore. There is a better gender balance, I'd like to think, but the fundamental issues are the same that you heard, and also the fact, and we'll spend a few words on that, that in fact in a region which is characterized by so much tension, conflict and inequality, in fact the environment has managed for 40 years to bring dialogue and peace. And this is one aspect of the successful aspect of the work that we have done. So here you see the, now let's go a little bit into the Barcelona Convention. MAP stands for Mediterranean Action Plan. This was signed by all the contracting parties, meaning the parties that are bound by this agreement are all the riparian countries of the Mediterranean. Palestine hasn't yet joined because only recently was recognized as a non-member observer state of the UN. And in addition to the 21 countries, we have the European Union at large, which is also a contracting party. And I want to say that, you know, already to have this vision 40 years ago is really testament to the fact that there were people who really cared. And so already the seriousness of the issue and the need to act as rapidly as possible. The objective of the convention is the protection of the marine environment and coastal zones as a contribution to the sustainable development of the region. I will not go into much of detail all the things that you see here, but we'll be happy to give more details afterwards. One thing I'd like to say is that I define it, I describe it as made of three dimensions. One is regulatory, so you have the convention itself, which is a legally binding instrument, and all the protocols that are signed by the governments and then become national legislation. So once these agreements are reached, they are translated into national legislation. There is an institutional dimension, which is us, the Secretariat, but most importantly, all the contracting parties and all the partners that are accredited to us, and the centers that work with us on various substantive issues. And the third one is the action on the ground. So, and here I want to stop for a moment because often we are said, but what do you do really? I mean, you know, you don't see us on the newspapers. We don't clean beaches, or rather we clean one beach every year. The work that we do is unique to us in that it is conducive to government's agreements. And that is one fundamental aspect. For any of us here who are political scientists, we know, or lawyers, we know that this is a fundamental aspect to ensure societal living together and working together in achieving shared objectives. So, but we also do projects. I have my colleagues here, some of them who are leading important and sizable project of activities on pollutions, on biodiversity, on emergencies. We were involved also in September last year in the spill that happened here outside the coasts of Greece, and many other activities that you may not hear about because not as visible and as friendly for tabloid first pages, but absolutely crucial for the development of the regions. This is a slide that I won't stop for much. It shows the list of protocols that we have over the 40 years developed, that the governments have adopted, and the ones that have been then ratified by the individual countries, so that have indeed become national legislation. And I think here is the crucial, really unique aspect of the work that we do and we deliver. And I think this slide shows also considerable success for the fact that the majority of countries have ratified the majority of the protocols. We work with, as I said, with a number of partners. most crucially 6 that are around the Mediterranean and work with us on specific issues, and you see them listed in this little map. Sorry, I went back. The slides shows the strategy that we have that, for the next 6 years. I don't want you to spend much time on it, but the vision, we saw it at the beginning. The main themes are pollution, biodiversity, land and sea interactions, and then climate change and sustainable consumption and production. And they're all directly linked with the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda of the United Nations. Now, one other aspect, and this is important also for Greece, because at the moment the Mediterranean Commission for Sustainable Development is under Greek presidency. The governments and partners have also agreed on a specific strategy for sustainable development of the Mediterranean. They did one in 2005, we have developed another one in 2016, which is being now implemented. And this strategy has a number of directions to which the partners have committed, and that they are going to be implemented again in the framework of a shared set of objectives and a shared vision. And here you see the links of these specific objectives and directions, again with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Let's talk about money. How much money do we have? I say, when people ask me what do you do, I really say mission impossible, because we are supposed to protect the marine environment of the Mediterranean and the coastal zone and contribute to its sustainable development with $11 million every 2 years. So that makes any small to medium-sized yacht that you see around the Mediterranean would cost probably more than that. But that's what we have. These are the resources that we have, and we are very selective and I would like to say, and I'm proudly saying that we are rather efficient in the way we spend this money in order to achieve, to execute our mandate. This is a trust fund that supports us, and you see the list of contributions is in accordance with UN rules, and it depends on the GDP and other considerations of the member states. But we do have a lot of other donors, mostly foundations and other financial institutions that support us and that complement the amount provided by the governments. The breakdown of a bit of activities by team, this is to give you an idea of the percentages of how our resources are spent on which teams. Inevitably, governance is the one where most resources are spent, and the others that are listed here are the themes of our strategy that I mentioned before. Now, in terms of achievement, what is it that we have done? And I spoke very briefly about that before. We've established a legal framework, now working for 40 years. We are the engine of really a transformative process in order to bring the global, as I said, agendas at the regional and national level. We have created this trust fund, although small, it is successful. Last year, with the exception of Libya and Syria, for obvious reasons, we have received all contributions, which to me is a strong recognition of the fact that countries see the relevance of a forum such as ours. And most importantly, what I said before, is the fact that around an issue such as environment, for 40 years, these 21 countries that are often even at war, managed to sit around the table and discuss in a very constructive and collaborative way. And this is, for me, if there is one achievement in addition to the substantive one that we have delivered, this continues to be probably the most important and the most precious. So we do also assessment in the sense that we keep the environment under review, and I invite you also to visit our website for another thing. This is the first ever Mediterranean Quality Status Report. So it's a report that we launched in December that gives you a snapshot of the state of the Mediterranean Sea and coastal areas in the sectors that you see listed up there. Now, I'm sorry, I know I'm going a little bit over time, but I do want to show you another little video. It's only a couple of minutes. This is me again, you will see.
Happy anniversary, UN Barcelona Convention. 40 years of achievements and still going very strong.
From Albania.
Tamo që të vëzhgë gorima militare programacione programa. Pravi kursovi for points za Bosnu i Hercegovinu.
Jedna 40-godišnjica Baku od Hrvatske.
والنمط يتخيلات النشر.
خطة عمل معي المتوسط بالعام الأربعين
L'anniversaire au plan d'action pour la Méditerranée de la part de la France.
Χρόνια πολλά για τα 40 γενέθλια του UNEP από την Ελλάδα.
Felice anniversario MAP dall'Italia.
ديما نقول لبنان عقبال كل سنة بمناسبة ال40 سنة للماب مناسبة كثير مهمة بالنسبة لنا وبالنسبة لبلدان البحر المتوسط.
تقدم لي عام البحر المتوسط لأقدم التهاني بمناسبة العيد ال40. كل سنة وانتم طيبين ومن أحسن إلى أحسن. صالح ونيس مسلمين.
Malta نشتغل l'anniversario طيب.
Des 40 ans du PAM. Joyeux anniversaire, principauté de Monaco.
تمنيات بمناسبة الذكرى 40 لخطة عمل البحر الأبيض المتوسط المغرب.
Vse najboljše za 40. rojstni dan mediteranskemu akcijskemu planu, vse najboljše v Sloveniji.
Feliz 40 aniversario MAP desde España.
نحب نهنيكم على مرور 40 سنة على تأسيس خطة عمل المتوسط. العام بما أقربه سوريا.
كل عام والمتوسط بخير. عيد ميلاد سعيد خطة عمل البحر المتوسط من تونس.
نتذكر يومنا تركيا.
Just a little flavor of the what I said before about collaboration, cooperation, and constructive relationships. Now, I promised that I would talk briefly about marine litter. John introduced it, and this is indeed one of the big issues of today for any ocean. This slide shows the plastic waste production around the world, and this slide shows the plastic waste trends. The picture is quite scary. You see in the top left the incidents at the moment from a series of assessment of marine litter in various parts of the world. On the top right, the video is done here in Greece. You can see at the bottom of the sea what is found. Bottom right is Marseille Canyon already 10 or 15 years ago, completely covered in plastic bottle. In the middle there is normal catch, fish and plastic, and we can continue on. This is not, what I call the pornography of marine litter, the way we talk of, pornography of poverty and other things. But it's a fact. This is really a serious issue. I had the honor of addressing the G7 ministers of environment about this last year, the G20 closing meeting on preparing an action plan on marine litter. I was at the General Assembly with some colleagues of the UN in New York in July. Everywhere there is a huge level of awareness. The fundamental problem is that we do need a systemic change here. There's something obviously fundamentally wrong in thinking that a material that we use for a few seconds, the time to drink a glass of water, is meant to last centuries in the environment. So are we ready to renounce plastic? Of course not. Plastic is the defining material of our civilization. It allows us to travel, to huge health advancements and food, etc. But a fundamental shift in terms of sustainable consumption and production is required. And this is something that, once again, we can only do together individually. We have a number of, here you see more pictures. Please pay attention. I didn't until 2 or 3 years ago. When you walk on a beach, just pay attention what is under your feet. There is more little pieces of blue plastic and plastic straws, and be a proactive yourself solution maker. I was at the beach in Skinia last year, and having ordered a coffee in addition to the plastic glass with the plastic cup and the plastic straw, now there is also the little plastic cover of the plastic straw, which is the first thing that obviously with the wind flies into the sea and is ingested by fish and eventually ends up in our own system, and we don't know yet how bad the situation is. So we have taken a number of actions. We are supporting, the governments have agreed on a very important regional action plan, committed. You've seen the results also here in Greece with the recent legislation on single-use plastic bags. We are supporting governments in a number of also alternative solutions like fishing for litter, whereby the fishermen are involved into bringing back to the shore the plastic and the trash that they fish. Other things such as encouraging and supporting ports not to tax or impose fees on vessels that bring back their garbage, because it's easier to throw it at sea for free than take it to the port and pay a fee for have it disposed of. So a number of responses, of action that are on the table. I do believe that we have the technology to respond to these challenges. We do have the resources. It's a matter really of a cultural and political shift that we all must very, very loudly call for. I don't have any more time, I know, but I want to show you one other aspect, part of our achievements. This is the marine protected areas in the Mediterranean. Unfortunately, we are far from being in good shape. Governments many years ago committed to have 10% of all the seas protected by marine protected areas. In the Mediterranean, we are far from that. There is movement now with a large marine protected area in Spain that is being for cetaceans, that is being established, and but still this is something that as a tool for the protection of marine environment, though not optimal, does deserve additional attention and support by all of us and by our governments. And finally, I want to close, and I'm sorry if I've rushed through a little bit, but there was just too many things that I wanted to present to you. We can continue this discussion, but I want to I'm sure you all know this, the myth of King this is a word very difficult for me, Marco, Erysichthon, the wrath of nature. The myth goes that a king from Thessaly in central Greece, whose name means the earth reaper, an arrogant and greedy person, decided to destroy the grove dedicated to the goddess Demeter and the huge sacred oak tree in its middle to make a banquet table. In spite of the goddess' attempts at dissuading him, Erysichthon did not deter from his design. He was punished by the goddess, who cursed him with a never-ending appetite, longing for anything edible on his way. His yearning seemed invincible. Eventually, Erysichthon finds nothing more to eat and ends up eating his own flesh until he dies. And although this is a very scary image, But you know, our Greek forefathers were very wise, and I think the message in this is extremely clear, and it's a very powerful lesson for all of us to stop eating our own flesh and start thinking at how to protect these resources that allow us to survive and allow the next generations to survive. And the very final word is a word of thanks to Greece, because we've been hosted here now for almost 40 years, very generously, even at the moment of worst crisis. The Greek government and the Greek people have welcomed us, and they may not know about us, but they welcomed us and they support us wholeheartedly. And you know, I really want to say Efkaristume, really, on behalf of all of us who work at the Barcelona Convention. So thank you very much, and I think we still have a few minutes for questions. Yeah, for questions and answers. So thanks again for your attention.